It's 1993. The place is a city in Bosnia, Sarajevo. This isn't a jungle. It isn't some backward region. This is a city that, just yesterday, had banks, schools, hospitals, and middle-class neighborhoods. You're standing outside your house. In front of you is your neighbor. Before the war, he worked in a bank, educated, respected. Today, with trembling hands, he's offering you a gold chain. He's not asking for food. He's not asking for medicine. He's asking for 1 pack of cigarettes and 3 Bic lighters. That gold chain in the old system was worth 2 months' salary. But today, with no electricity, no water, no rations, no government, that gold is just a shiny piece of metal. And the lighters, they're life. Fire cooks food. Fire boils water, so dysentery doesn't kill you. Fire keeps children alive in the cold. This story is not a thought experiment. It was recorded by a man who lived through it. Selco Begović, who survived more than a year under siege and saw firsthand what real wealth actually is. And he noticed one thing very clearly. The people who had gold starved. The people who had skills, tools, and the right supplies survived. This is where the most dangerous misunderstanding of our time begins. We're taught that in a crisis, gold is safety. If you have gold, you're secure. If you can hold it in your hand, that's real wealth. But when we examine history forensically, not theory, but actual collapse, a disturbing pattern appears. When the entire economic system breaks down, gold becomes the last thing anyone needs. In Bosnia, it happened in months. In Venezuela, in weeks. Argentina, Zimbabwe, Lebanon. Same sequence every time. First, people say, everything will be fine, then prices go insane, then the currency becomes a joke, and then society falls back to barter, direct exchange. At that point, no one asks how many carats your gold has. They ask, can you grow food? Can you purify water? Can you fix things? Do you have medicine? Selco wrote that during the war, 1 bar of soap was worth a dozen eggs. A single bottle of antibiotics was someone's life. And the most surprising thing, he advised that 1,000 lighters are smarter than 1 big generator. Why? Because a generator makes noise. It needs fuel, it draws attention, and it invites theft. Lighters, on the other hand, cheap, silent, small. And if one is lost, it's not the end of everything. This is where we have to accept a bitter truth. During economic collapse, real wealth is not what sits in a vault. Real wealth is what works. This isn't meant to spread fear. This isn't prepper fantasy. This is a post-mortem report of civilizations that have already collapsed. And in the end, the question isn't whether a crisis will come. History has already answered that. The real question is, when money dies, will you have something that can keep you alive? Every economic collapse begins with a lie. The lie is, the situation is under control. It was said in every country, in Bosnia, in Venezuela, in Argentina, Lebanon, Zimbabwe, everywhere. Currency collapse is not a one-day event. But once the process starts, the speed is shocking. In Bosnia, before the war, people trusted both the German mark and the local currency. In the early weeks, people still tried to buy things with money. But the moment supply chains broke, security collapsed, and the government disappeared, prices exploded 20x, 30x, even 100x. A pack of cigarettes that cost 1.5 marks outside the war zone was nearly impossible to find inside. Even for 40 marks. This wasn't inflation. This was the collapse of trust in money. If someone thinks this is all old history, Venezuela is a living laboratory. After 2016, inflation there crossed 1 million %. Banknotes became so useless that people jokingly called them dead currency. And what did the government do? It declared high denomination notes illegal. People were given 72 hours to exchange their life savings. 3 days, and after that, just paper. One truth must be understood clearly. Governments always save themselves before they save the currency. Even today in Venezuela, fishermen don't go to cities to sell fish for money. They barter directly. Fish equal to rice, fish equal to bananas, coffee equal to fuel. One fisherman said it plainly, money gets you nothing. Food is better. This isn't chaos, it's economic regression, society returning to its base state. When currency fails, people go back to what humanity did for thousands of years, direct exchange. Money is a social agreement. It works only when people trust it, the government can enforce it, the future feels stable. The moment these 3 break, money dies. Barter doesn't depend on trust in the future. It depends on present usefulness. You don't ask, will this hold value next year? You ask, what can this do today? That's why cigarettes, soap fuel medicines suddenly become currency. Here's a critical distinction to understand. Gold may be a long-term store of value, but it is not a tool for immediate survival. During collapse, the problem is not, where do I store value? The problem is, what do we eat tonight? How do I bring down my child's fever? How do I make water safe? Gold answers none of these. That's why in Bosnia, gold was traded for a can of soup jewelry was stolen or taken by force, Selco wrote clearly. But people knew gold would matter later, but not now. And it is in now that people die. Many believe crises are caused only by inflation. That's an incomplete truth. The real problem is this: people lose faith in the future. They believe today's price won't hold tomorrow. The moment this belief spreads, money dies, even if the notes still exist. That's why in many countries, the official currency still circulates, but real trade happens in the shadow economy. This isn't a black market. This is the real market. Money is not a law of nature. It's an agreement. And when society breaks, agreements don't rule, needs do. Those who understand this in time adapt and survive. Those who don't stand in lines holding worthless paper. History shows one constant in every major economic collapse. Productive land never goes to zero. During the Great Depression, 1929-1939, in the cities, jobs disappeared. Wages fell by 30-50%. Soup kitchens, hunger, and long lines became normal. But in rural areas, there was food, milk, eggs, vegetables existed. There was no cash, but there was no starvation. Many farming families had no income. Yet they survived because they had productive capacity. During World War II in the United States, over 20 million victory gardens, more than 10 billion pounds of food produced 40% of the nation's vegetable supply. Notice this? 2/3 of these gardens were in cities and suburbs, not on farms. By 1944, more than half the population was farming out of necessity, not patriotism, but economic survival. This proves one thing: small land boxes, the right skills, are ours life insurance. If we look at the numbers, during the 2008-09 financial crisis, S&P 500, 46% gold, fell first, then recovered farmland, 17% from 1992 to 2020. Farmland volatility, 6.8%. S&P 500, 16.9%. Gold, 28%. During inflationary periods, farmland returns 15%. Inflation, about half of that. Why? Because land produces, earns rent, feeds people. It isn't speculation, it's insurance. In collapse, people die less from violence and more from infection. Dirty water, open wounds, untreated fevers. That's why antibiotics, painkillers, antiseptic soap, bleach become real currency. Gold doesn't clean wounds, doesn't reduce fever. Weapons and ammunition are valuable but also dangerous, Selco's warning. The weapon you sell today may be used against you tomorrow. In collapse, real capital is not how much you've saved. Real capital is what you can produce, what you can repair, whose life you can save. Land gives production. Skills give freedom. Practical goods give bargaining power. Modern preparedness culture has created a dangerous myth that an individual or a single family can survive societal collapse alone if they stockpile enough supplies. History does not support this idea. When institutions fail, individual vulnerability increases, not decreases. Security, food, information, medical care, none of these can be sustained alone for long. This is not a moral lecture. It is the conclusion of medical and social science. A meta-analysis of 148 studies covering more than 300,000 people shows that people with strong social connections have a 50% higher chance of survival. This effect is as powerful as quitting, smoking a greater risk factor than obesity. In other words, loneliness isn't just an emotional issue, it's a life and death variable. In Selco Begović's experience, one pattern appeared again and again. Most trade did not happen in open markets. Deals were made privately and only with people who were already known. Why? Because in collapse, deception can be fatal. Knowing the wrong person can get you killed. That's why pre-existing trust was more valuable than any weapon. During collapse, law weakens, punishment becomes uncertain, resources are scarce. In this environment, people minimize risk, they don't gamble on strangers. That's why communities survive, loan stockpiles get looted. This isn't a moral judgment, it's the math of human behavior. In Venezuela, formal markets collapsed, but neighborhoods survived. People shared food, built barter networks, exchanged information. One woman who grew vegetables at home didn't need money. Her harvest became her identity. Those who stayed isolated either fled or broke down. The Amish don't make predictions. They don't sell preparedness. They simply live a way of life that continues to function even in collapse. Their model has 5 pillars. Land. Grow your own food skills. Every member is useful. Shared resources. Together, not alone. Trust. Built across generations, low dependence, not on external systems. That's why when the outside world shakes, the Amish remain stable. This is not a religious model. It is a system-independent life design. The Amish Hedge means preparation that works only when the system fully fails. It has 5 stages, and the order matters. Production, land and food, skills, practical goods, community, and only at the very end, optionally with gold, those who reverse this order are the most vulnerable. Today, for the first time, 100% of the world's currencies are fiat. None are backed by real assets. Debt is at unprecedented levels. Interest payments exceed defense budgets. Central banks are accumulating gold while ordinary citizens are told to hold cash. In history, this combination has never been stable. This is not a prediction, it's pattern recognition. Don't ask, will the stock market crash? Will the dollar survive? Ask instead, if money stops working tomorrow, do you have a way to eat? A way to make water safe? Trusted people who will help you? The ability to be useful to others? If the answer is no, gold won't save you either. Every civilization believes, right before it falls, that it is different. Every generation thinks, this time, the system won't collapse. But history doesn't move on feelings. It moves on structure. When structure breaks, those who survive are the ones who can produce, can repair, can share, and can build trust. In collapse, real wealth isn't in vaults. It's in the fields, it's in the hands, and it's between people. The question now isn't whether you're afraid. The question is whether you're prepared. And preparation doesn't mean stockpiling. Preparation means becoming someone who is needed.